Hi, well, I'm very excited to introduce Wendy Kinnear to all of you. Wendy is the regional coordinator for the Pennsylvania's Education for Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness. And Wendy, recently I heard you speak, and I did not know very much at all about this issue of homelessness for youth and children in our community. And I was thinking, if I didn't know, they didn't know. And it's
Right.
super important that we all know. So thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me because this topic is very important.
Yes.
And I think that Butler community needs to understand the definitions and the services that are out there for children.
All right. Well, let's start off with then the definition of homelessness, because it is something that I learned when I heard you speak.
Right. So for education, the definition of homeless is very different than what you might think of when you think of a homeless individual. So most people think of somebody out on the street. If I'm doing a presentation to a group and I ask, what do you think of when you hear a homeless individual? People will say things like they have mental health issues, drug and alcohol, they're sleeping on a park bench, they're panhandling. But in reality, families with children are our fastest growing population. And our definitions are much different for schools than they would be for social service agencies under HUD. So our definitions include things like doubling up, and that is when families do not have housing and they're staying with other people temporarily because of economic necessity. So this isn't about somebody who's wealthy staying with friends while they're building their new home, but this is when you've been evicted or you've lost your job and you have nowhere to go. So you start calling friends and asking to stay with them. And that doubled up situation does count as experiencing homelessness, in addition to anyone who's living in substandard housing. That can be people who've lost utilities, they're living with pest infestations, they're just living somewhere like a camper, something that doesn't have adequate windows or roof. So those kind of situations. And then we have other situations like people in shelters, and that's a really traditional definition. If you're in a homeless shelter, for example, in Butler County Catholic Charities has a shelter, or Voice is the domestic violence shelter. And the last category is unaccompanied youth. So any student who has run away, been kicked out of their house, or separated from their parent or their legal guardian for any reason. So that can be little kids who might be left with grandma and parents don't come back for them, and they sort of are being raised now by relatives. But a lot of these kids are our teenagers and our runaways,
Right.
and just kids fighting with their parents, or maybe it's not safe at home, so they've gone somewhere else.
Right.
Or parents could be incarcerated. There's a lot of reasons,
Sure.
but they fall under that umbrella as well.
So I know numbers change daily.
Yes.
Yes, right. In our world, in your world, what do the numbers look like right now in regards to how many kids, children, youth are impacted in Butler County?
Okay, so Pennsylvania is really careful not to double count anyone, so we have to wait till they clean our data.
Okay.
But the last numbers we had, Butler County had over 500 students reported by school districts that were experiencing homelessness. And that is only second in my region to Erie County, which has close to 1,000. So
Right.
Butler's number 2 out of my 10 counties in terms of numbers. And the state of Pennsylvania has over 40,000 students identified. So it's a very big problem.
It is a very big problem. And I know your priority in this situation is to make sure that these, obviously, we want to get services to the folks that are in need, but to make sure that kids remain in education.
Yes, yes. So this law is
Yes.
actually, it's a federal civil rights law. It's called the McKinney-Vento Federal Education Act. It was enacted in 1987 and put into effect in 1988. So it's been around for a really long time.
Okay.
And basically what it's saying is that any student who is displaced, doesn't have a stable home or a fixed, regular, adequate place to stay, has the right to stay in school. So that means they can stay in their school of origin and have transportation back, or they can enroll where they sleep at night.
Okay.
And the schools are not able to put any barriers up, like asking for paperwork or saying that somebody has to go to a notary or get some type of proof of guardianship. They have to enroll those students immediately.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's kind of a big deal because it's a federal law. So, and a lot of families don't know that they qualify.
Right. And like I said, this was all new information for me. And every time I hear you speak, I'm always learning. Something else that I learned that I thought was super important is that every school has a homeless liaison, which is our point of contact if we need to reach out to somebody.
Right, absolutely. So the schools are mandated by this federal law to have one person who is that primary contact, and they're responsible for making sure the staff in the district are trained, that families and students know their rights, that kids are enrolled immediately, and they also link them to services that I provide, as well as things the school provides, like clothing and toiletries and help with food and different things.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
that's a great way for us as a community members to get involved, to help out with this problem, or to provide, support for the homeless liaison
Mhm.
or the school district. So that's something that we could all think about. How can people learn more, follow, get involved?
Okay, so I'm based at the Midwestern Intermediate Unit 4, which is in Grove City. So my contact information and other information is on the website. Pennsylvania has several different places you can go. The Department of Ed is who I'm based through.
Right.
And there is a website. We have a Facebook page, the Pennsylvania Education for Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness. And you can see there all of the things we do, everything from angel trees at Christmas. We're always looking for groups to donate or sponsor kids. We have a Homeless Awareness Month in November. Actually, the Pennsylvania Capitol lights up red for homeless education awareness in November, and we have a Red Shirt Day that you can wear red and show your support this year. It's going to be November 17th.
Okay, good to know.
And people can always contact me or anyone on my team to talk, or you can go straight to your school district and ask your homeless liaison, how can you help them? Can you get donations right to them, or offer support or outreach and education into your community, your churches, rotaries, service clubs, all kinds of things.
Well, thank you, Wendy, so much for coming and helping to educate us on this very important issue of homelessness for youth, not only in our county, but in the state of Pennsylvania.
Right.
I know I learned, and I'm sure you did too. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Butler Buzz. If you want to see more, just click on the playlist button up here. To keep up to date with all of Armstrong Neighborhood Channel, click on the subscribe button down here. Hey, I suggest you do both. See you next time.